Welcome to the Thrive TV show with Lauren Parsons, helping you boost your health, energy, and productivity.
So hello and welcome to Thrive TV. It's great to have you with us. My name is Lauren Parsons, helping you boost your energy, health, and productivity. And today we're talking about the nature deficit disorder crisis. So I'm joined by Ricardo Sierra, who's the director and the founder of the Hawk Circle Wilderness Education. So welcome, Ricardo. Great to have you with me.
Great to be here.
Excellent. So we're going to talk about today what nature deficit disorder is, why it's a real problem for us and our kids. We're going to share with you what the long-range effects of a life when we're disconnected from the natural world really are, and also talk about what we as parents and grandparents can do to help our children to grow and thrive. So I'm really excited about today's session. Before we get into the details and the depth of it, I just want to ask you some this and that questions, Ricardo. It's a bit of a fun way for people to get to know you. So tell me, what would you prefer? The first question is always spots or stripes?
I guess I'd say stripes.
You're a stripes person? Okay, great. And what about shower or bath?
I guess. Shell or what?
Shower or bath?
Oh, shower's good. Yeah.
Shower, yeah. I wondered about that. I thought that's probably better for the planet too. Would you rather have a pet pig or a pet goat?
I'll go for the first one, the pig.
Okay, pet pig. All right. Batman or Superman?
Batman all the way.
Batman all the way. Okay, great. Speaking of superheroes, would you rather be able to fly or turn invisible?
You know, they both sound great. So I guess, but I'll go with flying. That sounds pretty fun.
Oh, nice, great. And logical or creative? I think I know this one, but I'm not sure. You tell me.
I'm pretty logical, but I also love to create stuff. So, man, I'm split right. I'd like both if I can, if I can have it, you know.
Yeah, actually, I can see that in you. Yeah, it's great. Yep.
Yeah.
And finally, the big one: cake or cookies?
Cookies.
Cookies. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Excellent. So just to tell you all a little bit more about Ricardo. Ricardo's the founder and director of the Hawk Circle Wilderness Camp, which helps children, teens and adults to learn life skills that are life-changing and transformative. He's spent 30 years there as an educator and a trainer to help over 10,000 people reconnect with the natural world. He lives in Cherry Valley in New York, and recently Ricardo and I were at the same TEDx stage sharing our TED Talks. So I'm really excited to help you spread this amazing message that you have, Ricardo. So first of all, just tell us, how did you get started in doing what you're doing now?
Well, basically, I loved being outside. I had a childhood that I lived really close to nature. We were in a rural area, and there really wasn't much to do. You know, I'm 54, so I grew up in a time before video games and television and all that. We didn't even have a TV, so I spent all my childhood really being out in the woods learning. And once I started learning wilderness survival skills, I found myself going to work with kids, and children just loved making fire, going camping, creating shelters, and just they loved that whole interaction. And so that led me to start working with summer camps, and then I started my own camp in 1989. Mm-hmm. So it's been a long journey in that way.
That's amazing, incredible. And tell me, what are the things that you've seen? What are the changes that you've seen over that time?
Well, when kids first came to my camp, they didn't have any problems for the most part. It was kind of like what they call the 80-20 rule. So 80% of children could tie knots, pack their backpack, sharpen their knife, cook over a fire, set up a tent by themselves, all that. And 20% probably couldn't really do it without a lot of help. But now, what I've seen is that it's really flipped completely around. Now, 80% of our kids are showing up at our wilderness camp who have almost no skills at all. No
Mhm.
knot tying, no sharpening knives. Like they're just, they can't handle that at all. And about 20%. So that's been a really big revelation for me as an educator, to say, how do I change my program to match those kids that are coming in with no skills at all? So we have to kind of, in a way, slow down and start with the basics. And that's been
Mhm.
tough.
Wow. So it's
So that was a
essentially
big,
flipped
we've
on its head.
been seeing that for the last 15 years, and it's really accelerated. It's
Mhm.
accelerated in the last, I would say, 10 to 12 years, rapidly.
Wow. Yeah. And sorry if I'm speaking over you. I think we've got a slight delay. So you talk about this
Okay.
thing called nature deficit disorder. So can you just give us a definition of what that is?
Well, nature deficit disorder is a condition. It's not a medical term, but it's more of a conditional term that Richard Louv, who wrote the book Last Child in the Woods, he kind of coined that as he began to see and study and write about the types of things that children are not getting that they used to get 30, 40 years ago. And so he's talking about nature deficit disorder as so the effects that not being connected to nature have on us as children or as adults, where we experience depression, emotional instability. We're not, there are actual concrete physical things that happen, not just like things like obesity, but our mental health, and
Mhm.
how much, our fingers and dexterity, all the things that we start to lose when we don't get outside and play as kids, and we don't get
Mhm.
outside enough as adults. Just the feeling of taking a walk in the woods actually stimulates about 10 different physical features in our body that stimulate us to create dopamine or serotonin, and flood our body with these really powerful hormones that help us to maintain our connection. And we've been doing this for 100,000 years as a species, and the fact that we are disconnected right now is really making a big, it's creating a lot of problems that many people are seeing, but they don't quite understand what actually is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, from what you're saying, this is affecting children, but from what I see as well, as this is actually affecting us all, isn't it, as adults? I just feel like
Right.
so often we are caught in this man-made world, and sometimes we can spend, or a lot of people can spend virtually all of their time within buildings, within concreted areas. And we all know somewhere deep down that when we get out in nature, it makes us feel good. I think we often don't place the emphasis on understanding just how beneficial and actually how essential it is. So this is where your message is so important. And I think a lot of the challenges we're seeing in terms of depression and anxiety and people feeling overwhelmed, that if we could integrate some nature time into our day every day, it would make such
Right.
a difference. Yeah. So can you give me any
Absolutely.
stories or examples of, can you share some of the stories of the kids that you've worked with, and what it is that you do with them?
Well, a big part of the nature, kind of solving nature deficit disorder involves getting outside, and that alone is awesome. So, like, for example, if a young person or an adult comes to our program here in upstate New York, or they, number one, they're offline, so they're not on their phone the whole time, kind of staring and looking down. And so what happens is that their senses are getting triggered, and then they are getting a chance to kind of take in what they see around them. And it's a full body experience. So in a lot of cases, children don't have to actually uh, do anything. You don't have to almost do anything,
Mhm.
because nature is going to work on you regardless of whether you're into it or not. It's still going to be affecting your mood and how you think and everything.
Mhm.
But you can't just sit out there. So when we take people out, we usually try to show them different plants they can use, things that they can touch and gather. So kids will play games. We'll have them play hide and seek. And hide and seek is something that, is magical, because you get them to go and lay down behind a tree, and they kind of like tuck their head down under the log, and they're laying on the ground, and they can feel their heartbeat on the ground and the grass, and they can smell the soil and everything. And so it's like they think it's about the game, but it's actually about getting them even deeper connection to playing with things and feeling and sensing and experiencing the earth in a way that they can't get from a video game.
Absolutely.
So that's a big
phenomenal.
part of it.
Yeah, it's great. My daughter actually went to forest school one day a week this last year, and I got to accompany her one day, and it was just the best day. We spent literally the entire day outdoors, and they got the children to take a little mat and just go and sit somewhere just for, I think it was probably about 2 minutes. They didn't ask them to do anything, but they just allowed them to be. And I think what you said about, playing hide and seek or playing games, I actually believe that adults, we need to do that too. Last night with my family, we were playing a game similar to hide and seek. We call it capture the flag. You've got 2 bases and you've got to try and sneak to the other base, steal their flag and get back to yours. So it's kind of like hide and seek plus go home, stay home. And it's just, I think the best thing about it is that it's so fun because you're just totally present in the moment. You're not distracted by anything else. You're just listening and moving and having fun and being connected. So, yeah. So I know that you've got people, for adults as well. What can people do if they feel that they want to really heal from this disconnect that you talk about? What are the practical steps people can take?
Well, I look at the nature deficit disorder as being, like we said, part nature. So getting outside is a big help. And then if you don't really know what to do when you're out there, it's helpful to try and learn something or practice a skill, like we said, learn about some of the plants or trees. It could be about gathering berries to make something at home. Things that will help us to feel connected to the things around us. A lot of times, we come from a hunter-gatherer background as human beings. So we're used to gathering things. We're used to throwing sticks. We're used to building a shelter, playing with clay by the river or gathering stones. And so anything we can do that kind of involves our hands and our head learning a little bit, and then seeing what's around us is going to begin to help us feel connected really quickly. And what's startling about a lot of the work I do with kids is that it's very transformative in a very short period of time. So a big part of it is them feeling safe, and then also learning something, and then beginning that process of going, sharing that with each other. So being able to connect with your friends or your family and tell the stories of your adventures. And so that's a lot of how this healing starts happening very rapidly. If you can't share, it's going to feel a little bit incomplete. If you go outside and you have an amazing experience and you see a bird or an animal and you go, oh, it was so great. And then you come home and you go, oh, let me tell you, a lot of times people don't really know what you're talking about, or they don't care. And then you kind of feel like nobody cares about me. So when we have people that connect with us, then we all of a sudden feel closer to each other. And so all of those things have incredible healing benefits for us mentally and physically. It's just, we're missing that in this culture. This is probably the loneliest culture, they say, that has ever existed on the planet.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I believe that that's true. And we know that connection is one of the key foundations of well-being. And I think that's connection human to human, but also being connected with ourselves and where we are. Yeah. I know in your TED talk, you shared some really striking statistics about, what's going on and how things have changed. Can you share some of those? Because they were really impactful.
Right. So right now they say, and this statistic is actually from 2016, I think. So there's they're always kind of coming up with studies that are more detailed. But what's been unfolding is that that children today are getting outside. They say it's like a 7 and 7, they call it. So they're spending 7 minutes outside and 7 hours online on average for American children,
Wow.
which is scary. And there's an article that just came out a couple weeks ago that says that actually prisoners in prison get more time outside than children today.
Wow.
That prisoners are allowed to go out and play and be in the yard, and they're outside, whereas kids literally they might have a half hour. Kids have 7 minutes. So a lot of schools are getting away. They're doing away with recess and playtime outside, and so it's very scary about what's happening. And the statistic about being online, they say that is really about any kind of screen time. So they're saying 7 hours a day on a screen is the average. I've heard it actually as high as 9 hours for a vast majority of kids.
Mm-hmm.
So those are pretty scary.
Yeah, and I know, having children myself, I just know how addictive those screens can be.
Yes.
And often it's putting boundaries in place and managing it. And also I think I try to empower and educate my kids on the benefits of them going out to play in the snow or play in the fresh air or rake the leaves and all those things. And usually it's more challenging to get them out the door than it is to get them back in, or actually it's challenging sometimes to get them back in because they really enjoy it once they're out there. And so it's just programming it in, isn't it? Yeah. So I know that while there are really scary stats out there, that you're still hopeful that things can be turned around. Tell me about how you see that happening and why you know that it can change.
Well, what's hopeful for me is that parents, especially parents of my age or younger, who have an understanding of this natural connection, they are witnessing the kind of the tantrums, the addictive behavior, and the screen time, and they're seeing children struggling. And so they know, like teachers know, parents know, grandparents know that this is a problem. And it's not a specialized thing. It's literally across the board. People are going, man, our kids are struggling. Mm-hmm. And so what I'm hopeful about is that with a little bit of help, they can learn to disconnect their kids from, to be able to put the iPad down or the video game controller down or turn the TV off or whatever, and begin to shift them into activities that are outside. So a big part of it is for them is to get really inspired that they can do that, and to also help them to take action and not be afraid that their kids are going to freak out. Like that's one of the number one things that I've heard grandparents say to me is they say, "Oh, I'm just so worried that my grandkids won't want to come visit me because they can't be on their computer or their phone." And they're afraid that then, they won't want to come to grandma's house or something. But in reality, by making them take their phone and put it down, they are now going to be in this place where they're going to have a much richer and powerful experience with their kids. So that in itself is going to become very healing and impactful. So a big part of my work is about trying to help them understand that. And if we can get them to see that is possible, then we can actually make really powerful change really quickly. I think technology is still going to be here, and that's okay. It's not really an anti-technology, but it's more about a controlled amount of time that we spend online. And,
absolutely.
And making choices. It's like food, right? It's like food or exercise or anything. Making the right choices at times really has a tremendous benefit, which is what I call it the natural advantage. You get a natural advantage when you learn skills, when you get outside, and when you're able to kind of bond with people away from phones and screens. So that's what I'm hopeful about.
And I know that you talk about even skills, things like sewing or knitting or crochet or doing manual games with our hands, even baking or preparing food. I know my kids, they love going to their grandparents' farm and going down the gully and building a fire and boiling up some tea, billy tea. I don't know if you have billies. This is a New Zealand word. It's kind of just for a metal container essentially, and making a pot of tea or hot cocoa, and just that experience of being outdoors. It creates these amazing memories. But I think equally, like you're saying, as parents and grandparents, we can be fearful sometimes that, if I turn the TV off, are they going to complain? Are they going to grizzle? Are they going to whine? And so it's being able to have alternatives and planning ahead. So can people access ideas or, ideas of things that they can put in place? Do you have your website available? What have you got to resource people to help them get started, Ricardo?
Absolutely. Well, my camp and my programs are mostly here in upstate New York, and so people can go to my website and see what we offer, but you can also get some online trainings, and a lot of these things are very simple to start with. So all those things that we talked about working with your hands and getting those skills, those are really important, and they don't have to be that complicated. They don't have to be some high level calculus or whatever it is. That can be very, very simple to start. And when kids get a chance to work with their hands, they're simulating that 100,000 years of being hunter-gatherers, where we had to make our own clothing, and everything we made from nature. So that's part of, I think, why it's so powerful. But I would say, YouTube literally is filled with how to do it yourself, the do it yourself movement, all the crafting type people. There's hundreds of thousands or hundreds of millions of tutorials online that you can type in and then learn how to do that and then do it with your kids. So the amount of resources that are available to us is it's staggering. So I just wish more people would start doing it and getting inspired to do it. And but it's all there. Everything we need is there to turn this trend around. So that's one of the reasons I'm really hopeful. So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And I think that shows, it's not about being anti-technology, because technology is definitely here to stay, but it's using it, isn't it?
No.
Tapping into those resources. I know my kids love watching tutorials of how to make things out of cardboard, how to make mazes and different things. And then it's just setting aside the time and just letting them go for it, getting some cardboard boxes and some glue or whatever it is that they need, and setting aside the time and space. And it's incredible the hours and hours that they can spend doing things like that once they get started. So, and I think
right. It's very addictive.
Yeah, from your TED Talk, Ricardo, was we just talked about how, we're now living with a generation coming through that do not know what it's like to grow up and just running outdoors and playing. We're living with a generation now that are growing up that have always had technology, and they almost can't picture what that would be like to live without it. So it's really coming back to our natural roots. And if we don't take action now, then we're going to have a whole world full of this generation that have only been exposed to technology. So yeah, I'm with you. We need to create more opportunities for our young people to engage. And yeah, I know it's going to help boost people's overall well-being. So thank you for all that you've had to share with us today. I hope that everyone that's watching is inspired. If there's one final thought you'd like to share with those that are watching, what would it be?
Well, I would just say that, the natural world, being outside and learning is always there for us. And we have to make sure that we give it to ourselves first, because then we have stories that we can then share with other people. If we're not doing it, if we're on our phone and staring, then we're not going to be able to do it. So we have to kind of put the mask on ourselves before we put it on anyone else. And that's going to be a game changer right there. So,
yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, our kids learn from what they see us do rather than what they hear us say, don't they? So absolutely. I love it. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Ricardo. If you're watching this and you want to find out more, then head over to Ricardo's website. The links will be in the show notes down below. I encourage you to check it out. If you've got time left in your day today, why not head outdoors right now and go and get some of that wonderful natural advantage. So thanks so much for joining us, Ricardo.
Thank you. It's great.
This has been a great episode of Thrive TV, and we'll hope to see you on the next one. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to the Thrive TV Show with Lauren Parsons. Visit thrivetvshow.com to access the show notes and discover our fantastic bonus content. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next inspiring episode.